And why does this matter? Okay, all this stuff, why does this matter? Is that attribution has been a source for decision making, investment decision making, right? There is something like, if my memory serves me right, $250 billion of media going into market in the US every year, another 250 billion in Europe. In the 250, digital advertising is something like 70, $80 billion, something like that. I mean, something in the range. TV is another equal amount of investment. Marketers are used to using attribution coming out of either Google Analytics or the platforms, as Gail was pointing out, for many, many years, for probably a good, decade and a half. They've been using AdWords attribution, Facebook attribution to make investment decisions on Facebook, on AdWords. And as that kind of started getting disrupted, it means that those signals that were guiding, probably 60, 70 billion dollars of investment is now weakening, right? It's kind of creates uncertainty and disruption for the entire industry and the ecosystem in marketing operations. Okay, that's it's kind of affecting something very central to how those investments are directed today, and a tool that they use, which is attribution, to direct those investments. Okay, all right. Now let's do an example. Okay, now here is a simple portfolio: Google, Facebook, and Snap. Okay, so this particular brand is investing about $2.3 million on Google. Let's call it search. 1.7 on Instagram, Facebook, and 1.1 on Snap. Okay. Now you go and look at the platform CPAs. You go pull a report from Facebook, from Google, from AdWords, and from Snap, and you calculate the total number of conversions and the cost you spent on them. And they say this is the CPA, right? Facebook is reporting $330 in CPA. Snap is $325 and Google's $561. Okay, great. This is great. And you were about to invest, and imagine like your head of analytics said, wait, this is from the platforms themselves. It's self-attributed. Let's go look at the Google Analytics numbers. We have Google Analytics. Let's go pull a report from them and see what their CPAs are. You pull that report. Google's close. Google's actually better. The Google CPA is $365. So like, that's great. But you look at the Facebook CPA is $3,000. The Snap CPA is $9,700, right? This is a very common occurrence across all brands. You look at something like this and be like, I can't even begin to reconcile this, right? So depending on what is your religion, either it's site analytics or platform reporting, you could end up in completely different places with respect to your investment thesis, okay? Now, this is a big problem for marketers, okay? I'm sure Gail has been through this many, many times. You might sit with your CFO, and depending on what the season is, right? Maybe the world is like looking really good. The business is growing really fast, and Gail takes, the self-attributed CPAs to the CFO and says, "Here is my CPAs. We're killing it." And the CFO doesn't blink an eye. It's like, "Great, okay, go ahead. Here's another $5 million. Spend it as fast as you can." Life is great. Gail goes back, and she spends the money, and she, on weekends she's out on the beach, like having fun with her family. Right? Phenomenal. Maybe the season changes now. Recession clouds are looming, and then everybody becomes much more margin conscious, and they're like much more conscious about what the CACs are, what the CPAs are. She now goes back to the same CFO, and she is now saying, "Well, these are self-attributed CPAs. What does your GA say?" And she goes and pulls a GA report. It looks completely different, and she's like, "Well, Gail, you don't know what you're doing. These CPAs look like they're like terrible, and you're investing all the dollars. You're a bad steward of our investments. We're paying $10,000 for a conversion, and we're selling shirts for a living, and it's $100 AOV, and this is a terrible investment. This is why the business is not growing." And you're like, "Well, I've been showing you these self-attributed CPAs for the last 18 months, and you've been happy with it." But they'll conveniently ignore you when you go back with that argument, right? This happens all the time for marketers, right? And this is a big issue, and they're not close. It's not like 330 versus 350 or 400. It's $330 CPA on Facebook. It's just $3,000 CPA on Google Analytics. This is the kind of divergence that you will see. And depending on what you believe in, what you might end up in is very different kind of investment thesis. That's number one. Number two, also, what happens is, let's say, for example, people say, "Well, I trust Google Analytics. That's all I'm going to trust." Now, what happens is that it only works for Google properties. So if your portfolio is heavily lower funnel, like search and shopping and a lot of Google investments, it might actually work for you. You might actually end up there. You might optimize there. It might work for you, but you will never be able to make Facebook work because everybody else in the world is making Facebook work and they're using Facebook as a driver of growth and investment for the brand. But you're not able to make it work because it just doesn't record on Google Analytics. So you're not able to make that investment work. And now your CFO is like, well, everybody in the world is making Facebook work. You're not able to. Clearly, we have a problem with how we're approaching it, right? So therefore, it becomes kind of a rock and a hard place for many analytics and marketing leaders where they don't know which way to go. And it doesn't look like there's a clean solution, right? And which is kind of what we're going to discuss here today. Okay, let me pause right there. And is this something that you guys have experienced? Jamarius, how long have you been in marketing analytics? Is this your first role in marketing analytics, or have you been in this similar situation before?
So this is my 6th year now going on working on the digital marketing side. Previously, I was in search discovery on the agency side. So I've done a bunch of marketing analytics with them, but this is my first role in-house. So I've gone through a bunch of this stuff before.
Is this situation something you've experienced before?
Oh, yeah, with several clients where they come in and they say, we're reporting this. And we're like, where are you getting those numbers from? And they say, we're getting them from we're getting them from Facebook or from Snapchat. We always have to say, like, okay, did you ever stop to think that these were too good? Maybe they were kind of overhyping it, or the fact that these didn't add up to, what you were expecting. So I've definitely seen this before.
Okay, Deepak, how about you? Is this you're in a different part of the market? How do you can experience this from your vantage point?
The main thing I see is that self-attributed CPA. The only thing that I'm aware of is even between different channels, you always find over-reporting, right? So yeah. It makes perfect sense that there's a complete difference between what Google Analytics reports versus the self-attributed CPA. I've never seen an example in real life, but it's not hard to believe.
Yeah. This is common. We'll hopefully see some examples in the class as well. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. If anybody has anything to add before we jump in to the next slide? Okay. Feel free to stop me always, okay? All right. Now, why is this particular phenomena such a problem for the industry? Is because now, let's say, for example, you don't know where to invest your current investments. You have, let's say in this particular case, 2, 3, 4, some $5 million of investment. You don't know where to put the $5 million, right? If you believe one paradigm, you have to have a completely different investment mix. If you believe another paradigm, completely different mix, right? You can't have these answers both be right. Now, why is those two answers both be right? Such a different approach for currently just mixing, investing your current investments in market today. Second is what about new investments? Let's say your CFO comes to you and says, okay, I've got another $500,000 for you to spend. Where would you put it? Should it go into Facebook or Snap or Google? Where would you put it? Depending on the CPA, it would go to different places, and the CPA is very different depending on what paradigm you look at, right? What's your CPA? What's the diminishing return? Okay, now we'll talk about this more in the class. This might be a concept a lot of you guys have been exposed to in different places. The idea is that as you make investments in marketing, the 10th dollar is less efficient on the 9th dollar, and then the 8th dollar, and so on and so forth. There is the curve for returns kind of flattens out as you go. It's kind of the idea of the easy way to think about the saturation. Imagine TV is the best way to think about it, right? Let's say you make a big investment on TV, right? When you start your program, TV program, advertising program, you're going to reach a lot of new audiences, right? Now, as you plow more and more dollars into market, the same people are now exposed to your ads, and you're not reaching new audiences, you're just adding frequency to existing audiences, which is not a bad thing. But typically, you will get more bang for the buck reaching new audiences as opposed to adding more frequency to existing audiences, right? So it saturates the audience, and therefore, as you saturate more and more, the returns kind of start falling and they flat lines. Okay, there's only so much demand for whatever you sell and market, and therefore it'll kind of flat line. It'll be like an S curve, right? And then you can see that in your ROI. So initially it'll not work, the media doesn't work, and then it starts picking up, it starts producing, and then it starts coming down. The CPA start now going up, ROAS numbers start going down because your market saturating. So that's experienced in the numbers as diminishing returns. So what is your diminishing return on Facebook right now for the next $100,000, next $200,000? And how much can you invest in each channel? Is the diminishing return the same or the curve's different, right? And what would the marginal lift in sales be? Let's say you're investing $5 million today, you're experiencing $20 million in revenue. Are you going to generate another $7 million in net new revenue, or only going to generate $3 million in net new revenue? What is the marginal lift in sales you will receive as a result of additional budgets? It's very hard to attack these problems with last click attribution. Okay, and that's kind of what we're trying to address here as part of the class. Okay.